Record. Awesome. We are live. Hello, world. Hi, everyone. I am Shaun Glaze with research out of King County Equity Now, and I'm here with LéTania.
Yes, that's right, LéTania. LéTania Severe, she, her pronouns, also with King County Equity Now's research team. And we are joined by a very special guest today, the one and only.
What's up, y'all? This is Nikkita Oliver, also organizer with King County Equity Now and with Decriminalize Seattle. So really excited to be here with these two brilliant people.
We're excited to have you. We're like, oh my gosh, Nikkita's gonna be our first guest. We made it.
Oh, I didn't know I was the first guest.
The first guest that we've ever had on the show.
Even more exciting.
It's super exciting. Yeah, today we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to give some updates. So we updated our at our last episode of this podcast. We gave people updates from the survey that we sent out that people could, answer about things like their priorities, what kind of needs they have, who they think should be on a steering committee to decide where the funding goes. But today we're going to share some updates about the steering committee again, and the outreach that we've been doing for that. And then I'll update about some exciting updates. So LéTania, do you want to go first? I'll go ahead and mute my mic because there's a helicopter flying by.
Awesome. Yeah, so a couple updates around the steering committee. Thank you to those of you who filled out the survey that we sent out. A couple of things we found in the survey was that a lot of the criteria that we initially decided would be important for the steering committee align with what a lot of community folks have agreed with. A couple of things that really stood out was making sure that steering committee members do not have any conflict of interest with law enforcement or police, and also making sure that they have a connection to lived experience within this area, particularly around over surveillance and police brutality, and just people who are going to be able to provide the most impactful information about community public safety. A recap, a few things that we decided would be important for the steering committee. Black people who are from Seattle. As I mentioned before, no conflict of interest with law enforcement or police. Experience working with vulnerable populations such as homeless or survivors of domestic violence. Also youth representation and those who have experience serving on other boards such as the steering committee. All those types of individuals would bring great knowledge to the process.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, also, I forgot the part. We've started to contact some folks and try and get see who might be interested and be a good fit for serving on the steering committee as we continue to move forward with this process and getting started with the research.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I think that's all the high points. There's such a big focus throughout the research and centering the experiences of people who have firsthand knowledge. And so it was just really encouraging to see those results, which also came out of our teach-ins and our one-on-one conversations with people, our outreach, our emails, lots of phone calls. So yeah, it's just exciting to see that. I do have a little bit of an update, which is that we have secured some initial funding so that we can go ahead and get started. One of the things that has been really cool about this is just like every person that I talk to about this research, every single community member is so excited and ready for it. I've talked to people who are like, I've been kind of doing my own like unpaid, research for, the last 2 months or the last 8 years. And this would be huge. And like the depth and the quality of research that people are already putting in between their like the rest of their lives, it's just, I can't even, like, I don't want to pick favorites, but I will say some of the things that really stood out to me is it's everything from people doing really deep oral history work and like talking to elders and talking to people who are, several generations in Seattle, collecting that pictures, stories, like that really rich qualitative data. I mean, just It's amazing. And then there's also people who are doing quantitative data. They're like, hey, I have projects where I've been talking to my neighbors and like everyone in my neighborhood. We knocked on everyone's door. We're doing like a little census work. We're trying to find out what people's priorities are. Like we're trying to figure out how to organize. Like we're using data already. And like I would love to be able to really explore this more and about like how to create true community safety with each other and how to create, you know, true community health. And I'm just like, yeah, this is really exciting. So, but one of the most important aspects, and we'll get into this a little bit when we talk about why the research matters for a lot of people, it's like people just want to see change, right? Like they just want the world to be better already. And one of the big themes that I've heard, especially in the last couple of weeks, is like, we're not waiting. People are dying. People are getting hurt. People are being pushed out of their homes. People are like not getting the things they need to be able to get their needs met, to survive, to thrive, to grow in closer relationship with each other. And so there's this growing idea of like, wow, like, you know, now is the time. And like, you know, so really pushing forward with that. So just being accountable to community means like really hearing that and not sitting on it and doing everything that we can to make that happen. So with that said, I think we lost LéTania for a little bit, but I'm sure she'll come back. It's tough with technology, but yeah, let's go ahead and like the topic today is, you know, why does the research matter? Like what was it about, you know, to just like the people that we've been connected to and, you know, where do we see from here? And Nikkita, I don't know if you want to spend some time to just kind of walk us through maybe some of the questions you're hearing related to this or your own thoughts. I'd just love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, you know, I'm really fortunate to spend a lot of my days partnering with young people between the ages of 14 and 24. And you know, up in our classroom at the hall where sometimes young people stop by to get resources or get grocery cards or pick up checks. We have defund the police posters, invest in communities, and free the protesters. And so we're having a lot of conversations just off of the art that's up in the classroom and what young people are seeing around the community. And they're asking questions about what does this mean for us? What does this mean in our neighborhoods? What does this mean for our families? And so they're wanting to know, what's the plan? How does it change the way that they live their lives? Like they're very concerned about the material conditions that they face. And COVID has exacerbated so many economic injustices we already knew existed. In addition to shutting down schools, community centers, libraries, places of work, you know, so many places that young people frequent. And so they're finding themselves in really challenging situations. And for a lot of young people not having access to internet or the right kinds of computers or technology. So even getting back into school in this digital format feels very challenging. So we talk a lot about what's happening politically, their questions about that, what they're hoping to see. And so obviously I've been spending some time talking with them about participatory budgeting, like where do you want to see money go? Where do you think money should be invested in our communities and why? And, you know, for me, those conversations have actually made more real the value of this research process we're entering into, of having Black-led, community-based research, where people who are not traditionally involved in these kinds of conversations because of the way that government works or consulting contracts work, hearing their answers has really like better helped shape the vision that I have as an organizer and doing this work. And so, you know, when I tell them about the research project, at first they're like, research, like what?
Yeah, right.
You know, like, why would we spend any money on research? And so then, like, no, you know, research is this conversation we just had. It's, you know, you getting to ask questions about what you're seeing, and then me getting to ask you questions about what you want to see. And the value of this research being tied to the participatory budgeting process is getting to see the funds of our city, the money of our city, directly invested in the things that will actually change the material conditions that young folks like the ones that participate in creative justice are living in. And when I tell them that, they're like, oh, you mean like my voice will be heard like a vote? And
right.
then I'm like, really? And they'll be like, well, I'm saying that, they'll explain to me, I'm saying that because they don't feel like voting works.
Right.
So then it allows us to go into an even deeper conversation about how this research process being led by us, for us, is actually even is much deeper than just voting for an elected official. It's actually like the step farther. It's a step farther into our actual community. And to see young people get excited about that, because they're getting to ask questions about the differences, you know, about versus like just allowing our elected officials to make decisions and us getting to lead the research in our communities,
right.
is really helping to make it come to life. You know, something that, because even like I said to you in a couple of our weekly meetings, I was like, yo, I don't even know how this is relevant to the kids that I work with. And I think it's important for people get to have space to ask those questions,
Absolutely.
to get that pushback, to make that critique. And since we had that conversation and getting to sit down and talk with the youth much more deeply about research and about this particular kind of research led by us, for us, and how it really does engage us in the participatory budgeting process in a way so much deeper than voting, so much deeper than just getting to go like speak to our council members at public comment, and seeing them get excited about the possibility of getting paid to do it. Because we don't get paid to go to public comment. We don't get paid to sit on these calls with these electeds and try to convince them to do what we know is necessary in our community. But to tell them, like, you'll get paid $30 an hour to participate in this. There will be things available to help you with rent, help you with food, and to make it so that you can focus on the work. They're really excited because that's never happened for them, not in their school settings, not in their other work settings, not in other organization settings. They usually have to overcome so many obstacles and barriers by themselves just to get engaged in the work. So it's been really good getting to have our conversations and then having those conversations expand to the young folks that we partner with, and seeing like the possibility of this research be exciting for them.
Yeah, no, I felt every word of that. And it's like, it's young people, it's people who are older, like it's our elders, it's everybody. Everybody I talk to, like a lot of us, we're just like not used to like our expertise being valued, right? The people who are making decisions about our neighborhoods often don't live anywhere near our neighborhoods. You know, they're like, well, I've never been to, like, I'm in Beacon Hill, but I read a couple of things about it, so I feel like I know what it needs. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, you don't like go to, you know, some, you know, professional person and they're like, you're, you know, I don't know, you don't go to like, pick an example that I see, although I'm a researcher, so all my examples are research, but I'm just trying to imagine like what that's like to go to someone who has an incredible amount of power over the material conditions of your lives. Let's like whether or not you can like have a job or you have access to good quality food, like just like a lot of really big things, you know, do you have the ability to move freely through your neighborhood? All these big decision makers, never having been in your neighborhood, can we really trust that they know what's important? That's ridiculous to me. I don't know what people in places that I haven't been need. Like, it would be really silly for me to try to, you know, say that my expertise is more valuable than theirs. But we do that all the time. And that has been the status quo for a very long time. So after a while, a lot of people start to think, you know, like, I don't actually know if it matters. They're going to make decisions with or without me. And with this research, it's like, actually, all the sort of excuses they used before for why they made decisions without you is they're like, we don't know how to find people of color. We don't know how to find Black people. We don't know if we don't know like a good way to get enough Black people. So we'll just kind of lump like everyone who's not white together and, you know, try to extrapolate from that about what people need. But I can tell you, you know, as a Black person and as a person of color, like, we're not a monolith. Black people alone, we're not a monolith. So it'd be really silly to try to pretend we are, but that's unfortunately, for so long, that was just the status quo. That's the expectation.
And I think that's what the youth were like. They were like, so Nikkita, is this going to be like voting? And kind of this look of disdain on their face because, you know, many of us, like, while we still vote, feel like at the end of the day, it is for someone in a position to make decisions about our lived experience and our material conditions around us that probably has never been to the spaces that they're making decisions about. And so I think I was actually glad they asked that question, because I was able to, we were able to talk about how this is actually a much more personable process. It's a much more personal process, and it actually is a much more empowering opportunity, not just to like be the one who's giving data and information, but to be a part of how the data and information is also collected, which is sometimes really sucks about research, because it can be incredibly voyeuristic. It's usually through a method that you didn't choose, but like you have to participate in if you want to be represented. And it's usually information that never comes back to you. So when I think about research, I actually think of like a very extractive process that comes and takes data from our communities, and then we rarely ever see a return on it. And if we do see a return, it's usually because it was used in a very negative way, because the perception of our community is usually just based upon the symptoms of things we're experiencing. Like violence is oftentimes a symptom of poverty, and rarely ever does this research dig into what would alleviate this lack of access to resource, or lack of access to healthcare, lack of access to housing. It's usually just like the surface level of quote unquote violence. And so the youth, like, we're actually very excited to get to think more about like, what does research look like from a like us telling our own story perspective in a way that actually feels accessible and useful for us. And then that data comes back to us. It doesn't go to some outside agency. It comes back to us for us to get to like say what we need and what we want and what outcomes. And we get to do it based on like this big piece of data that reflects the diversity of our community, you know?
Absolutely.
One thing I think is really cool too, as a researcher, you typically have specific criteria for how you do research, but this one's been written and built out to allow the person's own creativity to come out in how they collect data and how they want to talk to the community and present the information that they're collecting, which is something that's very unique. You don't see it I've never seen it like that in academia, and you very rarely see it at all. You probably never see anything like that in government. And so this is a really cool opportunity for people to be themselves while being researchers and you know, helping to improve their community.
Absolutely. I mean, I will say, like, just because this was my whole grad school experience, there are some of us who do this in academia too.
I know.
Like, shout out to
who I went to grad school with, who did something slightly that was way different than what, you know, what you're taught.
Yeah, it's not easy. Like, being in these spaces, it's a lot of navigating. In order to make it on the other side, you do have to do a lot of, you know, very careful connecting of the dots for people. Like, one of the things I tell people for this outreach is like, we don't need you to be like some super statistician. We have super statisticians who are on the team. So don't worry, you don't have to like suddenly acquire a bunch of new, you know, I don't know, skills and like all the fancy stuff. But most of the stuff that people want to do are deeply connected to skills they already have. And so part of what this is providing the context. So a lot of it is like, you know, really working to like pay people living wages and like trying to see like if we can get people healthcare and transportation and childcare and nutrition, and really just being like, what do you need to do your best work? We will like focus on making those, you know, conditions met so that you can do that deeper like analytic, dreaming, connective relationship work that's necessary to be successful. And for a lot of people, like you said, Nikkita, like that is not how the world has like set up our lives. It's like a, you know, this thing, then that thing, then the other. I got this many jobs, or I got to be in these many different places by this time. And there isn't that time for pause. There isn't that time for reflection. And people are still, like I said, already doing this work despite it. But imagine what's going to happen when we give people that space, when we give people that context, we give people relationships that they, you know, haven't had access to before, and we just allow their brilliance to take center stage. I can't wait. I get goosebumps thinking about it. It's gonna be some amazing work coming out of it.
Or what happens when people like are sustained, you know, in this time right now, when folks are not able to have jobs or access to healthcare because of the way that COVID-19 is affecting the economy. You know, I think folks look at that and they're like, well, you're not doing anything right now, so why aren't you doing something? And it's like, actually, people are incredibly stressed and overwhelmed, and your ability to like think creatively or to organize in community is just like substantially decreased when you're under this kind of stress. And so one of the things I'm really excited about this process is about being able to get resources into our community just to like relieve the stress that folks are experiencing. And something really beautiful happens when you're not under survival stress or in survival mode. The ability just to think creatively and outside of the box about what you want to see or what you need really starts to shift. You know, I think about young people who go to school hungry. Like you cannot think in a classroom hungry. Similarly, you can't organize your community. You can't do this kind of like creative research when you're struggling with like paying the rent or finding a job or getting food. What does it look like for Black folks, specifically Black folks, to actually have the opportunity in this space to like really be thinking about what would help us, heal us, make it so we can thrive? Will be really powerful.
Yeah, I can't wait. Oh my gosh. Well, I know in a little bit we need to start closing this up, but I guess for me, what I think would be really cool is to just like reflect. Like I sometimes think about like what might it have been like if I was, I don't know, a teenager or a very young adult and I was hearing about this project. Like who would like younger Shaun have been in this? And I don't know. I have a really hard time imagining that because younger Shaun was like I was in a different place in my life. Like I was in a different state, so it was in Texas. But also like I guess I would be so skeptical of something like this. I'd be like, so random people who I don't know have somehow like put forth this program where I will get paid to dream up the future. Sure. They're just like, I wouldn't even know what to do with this. I'd be like, this is a scam. This sounds like not a real thing. You're not going to pay me. I have no real work experience. Like, you're not going to pay me to come up with ideas. This is a trick. This is going to be school. Like, just like trying to figure out like what's up. And then I would just need other people to do it first and then see that they got paid and everything worked out, and then I'd be like on board. But that would be me. I don't know. What about you, LéTania or Nikkita?
I don't know that. I'm not sure. Younger LéTania was busy playing basketball, and I probably would have been like, I don't know. I mean, with COVID though, I would be stuck at home. So I think that it would. I was also in a different state in Florida. I think having an opportunity to do some work like this would have been very exciting. But yeah, I would think there would be a lot of skepticism just because of how our communities are kind of evaluated and what's the right word? Basically, there's always like a pathology around Blackness, and I think there'd be a lot of skepticism around like who was running this, and I'd be excited to know that it was a lot of Black people and people who actually have concerns like my own personal survival and being able to show up to do this work with all the things that I need met.
Yeah, I was also in another state growing up. I was in Indiana. But what would have got me to want to do something like this, I was a performing arts geek, so I was always staying after school for some kind of orchestra or musical or play rehearsal. And if somebody had told me I could get paid to ask my friends in my performing arts world, specifically like my Black friends in that space, questions about what they want to see in community, like here's a job where you can get paid to do some research in the space you're already in, because as we've already said, Black people are not a monolith. What would it look like for me to survey the Black folks that I was connected to in the areas I was connected and get paid to do it? Probably would have been a big motivator. So when I think about the young folks that I work with at Creative Justice, like how can they use art to be a part of this research projects. Our young people are very creative. They love using their creative skills. What would it look like for them to get paid to be doing research in an arts-based way in a space we're already in? I think is a really important way to like encourage young people to want to be a part of it. And it allows us to like, you know, they already trust creative justice and they trust our teaching artists here. How do we like connect with organizations and spaces that young people and families already trust, so that they might be a little more open to the process?
Yeah, I think one big thing out of that that I do think that is exciting is we're launching, like, you're our first guest, of course, but we are going to be launching several other sort of experiences on our podcast, including holding up, like, what does it really look like to do research in real life? And for me, like, there are some really great arts-based research methods that, like, they just don't teach you in most like schools when you're going through research stuff. Like, people are like surveys and focus groups and like interviews. You're like, okay, yeah, cool. You know, it's like, okay, well, tell me about photo voice, right? Like a photography based approach. Tell me about like theater of the oppressed, and tell me about like how people are kind of, you know, able to dream and act with their bodies, like the solutions they want to see in the world, and how that is a rigorous research method to do it. Tell me more about like reporting and how like some people will probably end up doing murals as part of their reporting, or podcasts or plays or music venues. Like, you know what I mean? Just like all of that is part of like the plan and the budget for this work. So it's just like, I'm excited to have like different episodes where we kind of dig into that more so people can see themselves reflected in this and decide if they want to do it based on, you know, that information versus like whatever, you know, kind of stories we've heard about what research has to look like.
Yeah, and I would love to like have that conversation with our creative justice young people. Like, we've actually done photo voice projects. You know, that's not what we called it, but literally just gave all the youth disposable cameras and asked them to take photos of things in their community that they love, and have them bring those back, or things that they wish were different, and have them bring those photos back and talk about that. So like, love, you know, this idea of tying in creativity and creating projects, like, you know, all kinds of projects. I mean, you could do it through culinary arts, storytelling, making songs. Like, you learn a lot about a community from the kinds of songs young people write and having those discussions. So like, that's actually, for me, I feel very excited about that aspect of the research, is how do we use arts and creativity for that imaginative piece, but also doing the research that's tight.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we're running out of time, and we can talk about this for a lot longer. We might have a part 2 or something at some point. But I don't know, like, there's a couple of talking points I wanted to kind of round us off with. You know, first, I just want to express a lot of appreciation for both of you, because like, y'all, I feel like I see y'all in so many organizing spaces and we have so many Zoom calls and like strategy, and it's a lot of work, and I just I don't always find the time to express that. So I just want to say thank you for existing, for breathing, for sharing space together, for sharing your brilliance with me. It's such a treat, such a treat. So good. But the second thing is
all the work you've been doing, leading the whole research process. Doing it.
Y'all are like the squad, the tireless, brilliant squad. I don't know how
The trick is to never sleep.
God, I know. Seriously, that's really the only way. That's like.
Well, I hope with these like new investments in the work, like as we're building that, like we can also get to like a healthy, sustainable place with, you know, like at some point, both of y'all gotta sleep.
So at some point, on that note, I will tell you what it will take. So the next step is hiring administrative staff. That way we can sleep. So for that, what I would say is, if you have any recommendations for some people who are great at project management, I mean, people who are really good at making work plans or planning events. You don't have to be like an official project manager, but if you've planned large events, you can probably have the skill set needed for this. I also need someone who's not, I need someone who is able to have some flexibility and grace for people as their timelines shift. So if you're someone who, if there's a minute past when a meeting is supposed to start, you're getting anxious, this is probably not the position you're gonna want. But if you're someone who's like, all right, I noticed that we're a minute late and I'm okay with that, and I'm just like setting everything else up just in case, yeah, then probably you're fine. If you're someone who's like, it's 10 minutes late, it's whatever, probably not for this position, it's probably not for you.
You need someone in between, right?
I need someone in between. I need that person who notices time, makes contingency plans, communicates well with other people, like, and is gonna, you know, be in community with people, but isn't gonna, you know, either get too stressed out if things are a little delayed, or completely thinks that time means nothing, because that is not going to help me. So, I can be that person. I don't need two of us. So yeah, so I need project management staff for sure. I'm also finalizing some HR support. So we're going to help smaller organizations, especially, don't always have HR. So human resources people who manage paychecks and stuff. I want to make sure people get paid on time. So if you have people who you would recommend for that, please send them to me. And then the other thing is tech support. As we know, technology is not always our friend. So having people who are really great with computers, great with internet connectivity stuff would be fantastic. If you know people meeting those criteria, please send them to info@KingCountyEquityNow.com. And if you put research in the subject line, it gets forwarded directly to me. So please do that so I can start hiring people. But I did want to quickly update people on what the next 2 weeks look like. So this weekend, there's a lot of, you know, talking to people, updating people, interviewing people for the project management, finalizing more details in the research cookbook, talking to more steering committee folks, just a lot of stuff going on this weekend, because next week is our week of action, where there will be several things happening in order to keep pushing our city council to override our mayor's veto. When they voted for the bills, they knew they would have to be in a position to back them up, because they knew that the mayor would probably be like, nah. So all we're doing is we're getting them to honor their commitment and follow through. So next week is all about that. We'll have updates on our social media and our website and stuff, but we'll also be meeting with the steering committee and stuff that week. So that's next week. And I'm hoping that the week after begins the first phase of the research of people doing their trainings, and we'll have trainings and we'll have a summit where there will be people presenting on like a holistic orientation. So like we said before, our research cookbook includes things like surveys and focus groups and photo voice and other things, but it will also include things like, how do you maximize your taxes? Because for a lot of people, this is going to put you in a different tax situation than you're used to. And I want to make sure that you're setting your, like, everyone's getting set up well to be able to take advantage of this opportunity in a way that makes sense to them. So we have, you know, those kinds of supports as part of the orientation. So that's what's coming up, y'all. If you are nervous because you're just like, I feel like I'm interested now and I wasn't sure before, is it too late? It's not too late. If you're interested in joining the research, you know, definitely keep, you know, contacting us, emailing us info@KingCountyEquityNow.com. It's a rolling schedule, so we'll have our first group of people and we'll just keep bringing people online over the next few weeks. Do not panic. If you find yourself really wanting to talk to us one-on-one, that's something that we're often able to do. And with our new PM staff, it'll be even easier. So, LéTania, Nikkita, is there anything else y'all want to add before we close it out?
I just really want to emphasize, you know, folks contacting their council members, especially the 7 of 9 council members that voted for the package. You know, they knew that the mayor was likely going to veto the package. And so they should have already had in their minds that in order to move forward, this very small amount of investment, this very small attempt at meeting the demands of the movement, they should have already known they were going to have to vote for an override. So just be emailing them, remind them of their commitment, all the like big statements that they made, and like encourage them. Like if you want people to trust that electeds are really hold to their word, which a lot of people don't, this is why people don't trust voting, that they need to actually follow through on what they said, which includes 7 of 9 council members voting for that override. So be emailing them, be calling them. I don't care that they're on vacation. You know what? Like we're in this monumental time, and it's time to stand on the right side of history. So call them and tell them to follow through, finish their commitment, and then get ready for 2021.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Right. That'll be starting real soon here. Yeah.
It'll start next month, which is why we're excited to get this research rolling, because we want some of the preliminary findings to inform that process. Like otherwise, if we wait until all of this stuff shakes, all the dust settles, it's going to be like November, and they'd be like, "Oh, sorry, we already decided. Better luck next time."
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Awesome. So again, contact your city council members. If you don't live in Seattle and you're wondering how to support, and you're just like, I can't call my city council members, what can I do? Next week is a whole bunch of stuff that you can do. So just like keep your eyes there. You know, always, you know, stay in communication with us. You know, let us know what you think. We want to hear. Write in the comments, you know, whatever you feel like is the most successful way for you. But we gotta show up, y'all. We gotta get this done. So with that said, I'm gonna go ahead and sign off. We'll see y'all next time, and peace.
Bye.
Bye.